Hello, everyone. Justin Stivers. Thank you guys for listening, watching another episode of the Stivers Show. I have a very cool guest today, Kris Putnam-Walkerly. She is a philanthropy advisor, which we're going to learn what that is. And for you estate planning attorneys, wealth advisors, I think this is going to be especially important because she's going to give us some kind of advice how we can advise our clients to begin their philanthropic journey and all of that. So, Kris, glad to have you on. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So I always like to start, maybe just a little bit, about you, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a philanthropy advisor, as you just shared. And what that means is I work with ultra high net worth donors, as well as the CEOs of charitable giving foundations, family foundations, community foundations, and corporate giving programs to help them to essentially give their money away effectively to the causes and issues that they care about. And often that involves helping them even figuring out what are those causes and issues that they care about and what kind of difference they want to make with their charitable giving and how to create that impact that they're seeking. And then I also do a lot of work with wealth advisors and estate planning attorneys, essentially to help them to help their clients with their philanthropic giving.
Where did this come from? What were you doing before, or maybe you were in this space before that you saw a need for someone to advise people how to do this or what they should be doing?
Yeah, prior to starting my consulting business, which was over 20 years ago, I worked at Stanford University, and I was evaluating youth violence prevention programs throughout California. And that initiative was funded entirely by one foundation, the California Wellness Foundation. And so I learned that, if you have a lot of money, as a large foundation does, and you bring in the right expertise and look at the best practices, do your research to figure out what the best approaches are, you can really create a lot of positive change if you do it well. And so that was intriguing to me. I decided to go work at the David and Lucille Packard Foundation after that, which is the family foundation of Dave Packard of HP, which at the time was, I think, the largest foundation in the country. And so I learned a lot more about philanthropy, began to get offers to consult on the side. This is, I'm dating myself, the dot-com boom, the original one. And, there was a lot of philanthropy. I was living in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. A lot of wealth was growing and people wanted to, give back. And so there became a need for people like myself to consult and advise high net worth donors, entrepreneurs on effective giving strategies, essentially. So that's how I got started.
So when someone brings you in, I don't know if that's correct, if someone brings you in, but is there sort of a starting point where someone, your typical clientele, high net worth or foundation, where do you kind of start and to decide? Let's say with someone who's just beginning, they're acquiring wealth or they've acquired wealth and now they're like, I've got this money, what do I do with it? Is that kind of where you come in?
Yeah, I come in really at any stage in someone's philanthropic journey. So it could be that they just sold their business or they just inherited wealth. And now they're thinking, my God, what do I do? And how do I, I have more money than I ever imagined. How do I give some of this back and make a difference philanthropically? But I can also work with somebody who's been, philanthropic for generations, perhaps, right? But might be thinking about doing things differently, maybe as a family foundation, or, anywhere in between. And so to me, it's helping them at whatever stage they're at to get the clarity that they need to make the greatest difference possible. So what that tends to mean is asking them a lot of questions, really helping them understand their why. What's your purpose as a philanthropist? What kind of impact do you want to have with your philanthropic giving? What issues or causes do you care about, yourself or as a family or as a company? What kind of change do you want to see in your community or in the world or on that particular issue? And then helping them also look at where they are today, given your goals, that's what you want to do. Where are you today? Well, today I have no idea. I just inherited this money. Like I have no clue. Or we have a family foundation, but it's been very kind of general. We've given to different issues and causes, but now we want to become more strategic. And I help them figure out a pathway to move them from where they are today to where they want to be, and get clarity on what the maybe 1, 2, or 3 most important things are for them to do in order to move forward. And so, that could mean, pick an issue or cause. Well, here, how about you, Justin? Pick an issue or cause that's important to you. Just name any issue.
Environment.
The environment. Perfect. So the environment, a lot of people, that's an important cause, but it's also a huge cause, right? It's a worldwide. So I'd probably help them narrow that down a little bit in terms of what kind of, what does that mean? Is it climate change? Is it, open space community? What is it that they're more focused and interested in? And then help them to understand what those issues are, the needs, other organizations they could support, other funders maybe they could even partner with, and help them create a giving plan, essentially, so that they know specifically what within the environment or mental health or child trafficking, whatever the issue is that they care about, specifically what kind of difference they want to make, which kind of organizations they can support. And then also potentially how they involve other family members, if that's relevant, or how they involve employees, if that's relevant. But it's really getting that clarity and that kind of that transformation. What's the change they want to see, and how can we help them achieve that change?
I'm imagining these groups, let's just say families, individuals, they're very guarded. It's a very, close-knit group because probably they're getting solicited all the time and they're very suspect about, letting somebody in. So how do you kind of bridge that gap to get in and say, no, I'm on your side, I can help? Is it just, you've been working with people, so you're obviously getting a warm introduction, or how does that work?
Yeah, you hit a really important point, because a lot of high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals and families feel very fearful about letting it be known that they have wealth, about identifying, even going public about the causes that they care about, because they're afraid of people criticizing their choices of what they're giving to or not giving to, or just being fearful of kind of being out and about because they're going to be asked for money. I talked to one woman whose husband sold overnight. They had more money than they ever imagined. And it was really stressful to her because she literally felt afraid to go to the grocery store, because suddenly people were coming out of the woodwork to ask for donations. And it made her feel very uncomfortable because she wasn't prepared for that. And so in fact, I just wrote this book called Delusional Altruism. And I think fear is such a big challenge in philanthropy that I wrote a whole chapter on it. So it's a really important point. And, a lot of these individuals, wealthy individuals, are very private and very protected, right? And so one of the ways that I am brought in is by their estate planning attorney, or by their wealth advisor, or the family office leader, or somebody who already has an established relationship with them, who they trust and already are working with. But a lot of times wealth advisors and estate planning attorneys, they might offer some philanthropic services, but not much. And so what I can do is I can come in either and be referred to their client directly, because the client has a much greater need. They want to create a giving plan, let's just say, or they want to, start a foundation, but not just handle the transaction of the 501c3 setup, which I don't do. But more importantly, they want to get clarity on the mission and the vision and what they're going to fund, and I can help with that. So sometimes I'm brought in by the wealth advisors and estate planning attorneys to help their clients through a referral. And sometimes I'm brought in entirely behind the scenes to help the advisors and the attorneys increase their knowledge about philanthropy, increase their comfort level about talking to their clients about philanthropy, and really help them shift from what I would say that is the transactional to the transformational. And by that, I mean, a lot of times the wealth advisor or the estate planning attorney can certainly say or help them create a donor advised fund, or start a foundation, or issue a check to an organization, or add a particular organization into a planned gift. But to me, that's important, but that's a transaction. And I want to help my clients think about the transformation. What kind of change do they want to see? And then how do they manifest that change? Part of that could be during their lifetime, right? They want to give during their lifetime and as part of their legacy. They might want to volunteer during their lifetime. How will they involve the children, things of that nature. So so to answer your question, I'm often brought in by the wealth advisors and the estate planning attorneys to help their clients.
So what can you, or what do you bring to these wealth advisors, to these estate planning attorneys? Because my guess is a lot of the estate planning attorneys or wealth advisors, they're probably, they maybe have some knowledge and, like you said, the transactional, but my guess is you kind of like, how are you adding that what you call transformational value to, I guess, educate these wealth advisors and estate planning attorneys to provide additional value to their clients?
Yeah, well, part of it is helping them recognize some of the mistakes that they're making, which I think cost them money and ultimately can cost them their clients in the long term. Meaning, a lot of ultra high net worth people are looking to their advisors, their estate planning attorneys, for advice on philanthropy. They actually want it and seek it, and they don't really know where else to go. But the advisors and the attorneys are often fearful and avoiding those conversations because they don't quite know how to have them. They don't feel confident enough in their understanding of philanthropic giving. And sure, they can advise on the tax strategies, for example, but on the content strategies, it just simply might not be their area of expertise. And so they avoid the conversation altogether. That's a mistake. I think another mistake is, not involving the kids, the adult kids, in the conversations that they're having when they're thinking about, protecting wealth across generations or estate planning. And that's a challenge because, a lot of times these children will be the ones inheriting the philanthropic foundation, let's just say, right? So how do you engage them in the conversations to make sure that what they're going to be inheriting is also meaningful to them, that they're aware of it, that they understand the responsibility, and they know what the expectations are. And also, I think another challenge is simply not knowing how to have those conversations. And so I often will help them figure out, what are kind of the conversation starters? What are the ways to talk to your clients about philanthropy that you might not be aware of? And also just helping them to understand that there's more resources for them. So if their client comes to them and says, wow, take this pandemic that we've all been living through. There is going to be this huge surge in mental health challenges, right? We can't even begin to assess the mental health impact of COVID on ourselves, on our communities and the world, right? We want to make a difference in that area. So, an estate planning attorney might be like, that sounds great. I have no idea how to help you do that, right? But I can, right? I can help that family think about, well, let's talk about mental health. Like, why is that important to you? What have you seen? What have you observed? Have you already supported any organizations that address that? How can we help you learn more about this issue? And how can we help you kind of get a clear strategy as to how you can make a difference given the amount of money you have to allocate toward charitable issues? And so, part of the way I help the advisors and the estate planning attorneys is helping them to recognize that there are people like me, right, that can help their clients. And, to me, I'm issue agnostic. I don't care if the family wants to give to mental health or substance abuse or the environment. I mean, as long as they're not harming people. But it's really to help them create the impact they want, but also the joy that they want to experience with their philanthropy.
Yeah, I think what's a point that I've felt sometimes is that I think clients come to their estate planning attorney, and once you've already kind of have that relationship, you are their advisor, you are their counselor. But there's things that maybe a lot of attorneys is outside of their wheelhouse, and they maybe don't feel comfortable advising on. I mean, for example, when we're doing a probate, they're obviously just lost somebody who's passed away. I'm not qualified to give, counseling, grief counseling, but we try to bring in grief counselors to speak with the client because that's clearly a need they have, and they're coming to us and they might not know, where else to go. So I think that this is right on point for the planning side of things is, they might want to do, they obviously want to give, there's some sort of philanthropy that they want to do, but we might not be in the position, which is why we bring in someone like you to kind of, bring you into that conversation.
Exactly. And often the family doesn't even realize what their options are. And, the last thing you want to do is saddle a family with something they don't actually want. Like typically people think of philanthropy, they think of starting a foundation. Well, starting a foundation means creating a 501c3 nonprofit organization that then has to be managed, right? There's legal issues, there's tax issues, there's, IRS rules to follow. And, there's lots of other ways to give. I'm not against foundations, but, you have to make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into if that's the approach you want to take. And so I think sometimes, you don't know what you don't know as a family. And so helping, one of the ways that I add a lot of value is helping them see the breadth of the ways that they can be supportive on various issues and causes. So for example, instead of starting a foundation, you can create a donor advised fund. And there's many places to do that. You can partner with your local community foundation, which will likely exist in, sort of in perpetuity to help support that community. There's all kinds of things you can do. And so it's really helping them think through, again, what do you want to accomplish and what's the best way to accomplish that?
So how does one kind of begin their philanthropy journey then?
Well, I would say ideally early and often. So, I think typically we think of, you learn, earn, and return, right? So early in your life, you're learning in school, then you're earning. Once you get a job in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and then sort of somehow later in life, you're returning all that what you've earned back to the community, back to the world. And I think that's a flawed way to think about it, because I think, there's so much opportunity that we all have to give back in meaningful ways. And giving doesn't necessarily just mean money, right? I think it means giving not just your treasure, your money, but your time, your talents, your expertise, your ties, meaning like the connections you have. So think about the people that you know in the community and how that could be helpful to a nonprofit that you're supporting, or your expertise that you can share. So there's all kinds of ways to give, and you don't need to be a billionaire or a millionaire to begin giving back. So I think starting early in our lives, like you were in the Peace Corps, that's giving back. I think a lot, and volunteering and other things. And so, so thinking about ways that you can give that are meaningful to you, and then, getting clarity, I think, on whatever issue or cause you care about. Sometimes when we just getting started, we're bombarded by, our friends participating in the leukemia bike-a-thon, or, whatever the cause is, which is great. But getting clarity on what's important to me, either because it's part of my family's experience or my own lived experience, or what I'm seeing happening in the world, like with police brutality and, systemic racism or whatever, the climate, public health system challenges, as we've seen with the pandemic. It could be anything. And really taking the time to learn. I think as donors, we need to invest in ourselves. And part of that means invest in our own learning, just taking a little bit of time to understand that issue. And then once you begin to support organizations, I think it's important to build trusting relationships with those groups so that you get to know the executive director, you show up for the gala or the virtual gala, whatever it might be, that you volunteer and give monetarily, but really learn what their challenges are, so that you have a relationship when you can contact them and say, hey, I want to give more. What would have the biggest impact for you? Or you want that nonprofit leader to come to you, quite frankly, when there is a challenge, when there is a problem, to say, hey, this is what's going on. We appreciate your support over the years. This is what we need right now. Would you be able to support us in this new way? And you want to have that relationship so that you can, be there for them and really understand what those community needs are.
I think that's great. Fantastic. And very, practical advice. Start now. There's little things that you can do now that you don't have to be a billionaire to do it. So I think that's fantastic. probably a good place to stop as well. I know we're coming up on our time, but if people want to learn more, get you involved, what's kind of the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so the best way is you can go to my website, which is putnam-consulting.com. But I'm also happy to have a conversation with any of the listeners. If you've heard things that would be helpful to you, you can go to scheduleacallwithkris.com and find time on my calendar to schedule a call.
Oh, that's a great domain. I might have to copy that. I like that. So awesome. Thank you, Kris. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.